water out of Canton Lake just to fill up this Oklahoma River so they could row boats on it. Not for water consumption, but for non-consumptive use of the water, for recreation. So they're draining one way so they can have recreation. Now they don't want us to have recreation, apparently. So I'm sitting here to tell you today that this water is jobs. Has anybody seen the movie Rango? Nobody? You see Rango? What's the one saying in that movie? He who controls the water has power. And that's what Oklahoma City is wanting to do, is have the power to control this state. This isn't about water, this is about control. This is about urban and a rural divide, and Oklahoma City with the votes want to control the whole state. And we're saying you can't control it. In Avatar, another movie that I like, what you see, you saw somebody wanting to take somebody else's resource. And what did the people do? They stood up and they fought, didn't they? So I want to tell y'all here, whatever you do, you're going to have a fight unless you work with the people of Southeast Oklahoma. Because we will not sit back and let you just take our resource away from us and kill the future of Southeast Oklahoma. Now, we've got all kinds of issues here that we need to solve. Now, how do we do this? We sit at the table. We work together. But has there been one overture by this Senate, by the legislature, by the governor, to sit down with the people that are involved in this and discuss it? No. We requested, the Oklahoma Responsible Water Policy, Charlie Hearn here, has requested twice to meet with the governor to discuss this. She's refused to meet with us. So why does she refuse to meet with the people this going to affect? Because they've got their mind made up on what they want to do. So we're going to tell you today that, yeah, some people may have their minds made up, but we hope that your minds are open. We hope that you're here today with a true open mind to hear what the people of Southeastern Oklahoma have to say. And before you make a decision, before you go back to the legislature this session, that you make sure that what you do protects and benefits the people of Southeastern Oklahoma and keeps this water here for us to create jobs for the people here. Thank you.
Many times, every time you see my face, you hear these words coming out of my mouth. Protect non-consumptive uses of water. And one of the things that I specifically talked about, and also the last time you saw me, this is what I was talking about. And non-consumptive uses of water, specifically real estate, and the value of real estate, and how it's tied to water, and how it helps the state of Oklahoma, and specifically helps Southeast Oklahoma. I live near Lakeview Falls. So just like Broken Bow, although Broken Bow, you have this beautiful green belt around your lake, around Lakeview Falls, it has 600 miles of shoreline. There's many homes. Real estate is booming around Lakeview Falls, particularly the south end of the lake, which is over a 9, Longtown, 9A, that whole area. Beautiful, expensive homes are going up there. And those homes are worth, by virtue, I talked to several real estate agents and several real estate experts. Those homes are worth $130 to $150 a square foot by virtue of being either on the water or having a view of the lake. The same home, even in a really nice neighborhood in Tulsa or Oklahoma City, is going to go for about $100 a square foot. This, among other things, this causes property taxes, property values to go up, so property taxes to go up. There's this community called Longtown that's on Lakeview Falls. And Longtown, the last time you saw me, I said that the taxes from the homes in the Longtown and 9A area on Lakeview Falls basically support the Canadian school district. Since I saw you, I saw the superintendent of schools for the Canadian school district. And he informed me in the middle of the economic downturn, when school districts were bankrupting and going under in Oklahoma, they went into the new year with $1.5 million in reserves because of property taxes. And the thing is around the lakes where you have valuable real estate, these people are amazing. Either people from other states, people from retirees. So they are bringing their dollars into the school system, and they are not bringing their children into the school system. They are pumping money into the community. In other ways, too, when I say people are building homes around the lake, I live on Lake Eufaula. In the neighborhood where I live, the neighbor to the north of me, the neighbor directly to the south of me, both live in Texas. One lives in Arlington, the other lives in Plano. When they vacation, they bring their vacation dollars to Oklahoma. They're up at least 1 week in the month, sometimes more. The empty lot across from where I live just sold. Guess where that person was from? That person was from Texas. So when you drive around our lakes and you see all these license plates from Texas, they may be paying their car tags in Texas, but they're paying their boat tags in Oklahoma. They're paying property taxes in Oklahoma. They're buying fishing licenses in Oklahoma. They're buying groceries and gas and doodads for their house. And like you heard me say, at the end of a hot summer day, when they're tired of being on the lake, they go down to McAllister, near where I live, and they spend their money at the movie theater in Oklahoma. So I want to tell you, to remind you people, everybody here, that when we talk about non-consumptive uses of water, this isn't something ephemeral. It's not something that you can't see or touch. Non-consumptive uses of water translates directly into the value of real estate. That translates directly into dollars into our economy. It translates into jobs into our economy. There is a guy from Wetumpka who built 3 and now 4 developments right in the area on the lake where I live. He was just a little guy from Wetumpka who got into construction. The land that he bought for these 3 developments, I'm not even counting the 4th, I went over the tax records that he got. Initially, this land was worth about $24,000, some of this land. Another piece was worth about $50,000. According to the tax assessor, that land is now worth $8 million. That's what non-consumptive uses of water does in this state, and it puts money in the state coffers. Let's not forget this, and I go back to the Texas thing. Senator Ellis missed this the last time I talked in front of the Joint Legislative Committee. You always say, if Texas wants our water, let them come here, let them build factories, let them create jobs here. Well, they may not be building factories, but they are building a lot of lakefront homes, and they are buying our water without a single drop of it ever leaving this state.
Next, we have Ms. Charlotte Hearn.
Senator, thanks for being here today. Welcome to you from McCurtain County. You know, we've been referred to as the people's stepchildren. I suggest we're the Senatorial of the state. We are very divided to share our duty with other people. And you've heard over and over again about non-consumptive use. In the legislature in the future, we would like to request that you support the OWRB in proper language for the measurement of this in-stream flow and the money to do so. It has been kicked around since 1980, and in-stream flow measurement often pits the environmentalists against municipalities, oil leagues, certain insurance companies. And what has happened is that a small group of very vocal lobbyists have swayed the legislature to not study our water properly. In-stream flows are a must for our future, for the sustainability of water here in McCurtain County, in all of southeastern Oklahoma, and western Oklahoma as well. If we don't have these, our tourism and recreation goes unmeasured. It's like it's not been used. Our fish and wildlife can go down the tube. Our poultry farmers, many of them are not considered in this study because they're on private wells. They're going to be forced to go to public facilities. important to us, and they have not been studied. In-stream flows are a must. Just in the Kiamichi Basin alone, hydrologists tell us that we must have 6 in-stream flow meters. Folks, there are only 3. And it even gets worse in McCurtain County. They have no idea of what it might take to keep that fish alive. And nobody here is a Greenpeace environmentalist. We're not walking around to say that pink-eyed fish. We want to preserve our way of life. We want to make sure that we have sustainable flow for future generations. It's important that our message be received properly, is that we want our rivers, our lakes to remain usable and protect those uses that they are currently usable. Intrabasin transfers. You heard a lot about that. I think you know how we feel. So Texas, our neighbors to the south, has very definitive legislation on intrabasin transfers. I would like to see us adopt some of their legislation, or their language. We only need to look to Georgia, Colorado. They've adopted it. They have in-stream flows. Why don't we? Why don't we have tough regulations on interbasin transfers? In Texas, the Senate Bill 1, they acknowledge by their Texas A&M Law Review that when water is transferred from an area, so goes with it tourism, recreation, fish and wildlife, yes, economic development, with the donor basin being left with environmental degradation. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants a false sense of security, as Mr. Cox pointed out on the other end of the pipeline. Perhaps we need to look at conservation and being able to study the groundwaters that are available for use with the new desalinization technique. Let me see if I get that word down. But there are a lot of opportunities out there, but we have to study. Anything that we do should be based on sound science, sustainable for the future, and properly vetted in the scientific community. Otherwise, it won't work. Science does not lie. We have regulations within the Red River Compact. A lot of that water you see flowing down the stream doesn't even belong to us. And if we pull vast amounts of that water out, there are terms in that Red River Compact that very definitively have statutes concerning quality of water. So all these things must be properly vetted before anything is done with our water. And as president of Oklahomans for Responsible Water Policy, we are 12,000 members strong and growing. We ask you to preserve and protect the waters of Southeastern Oklahoma and to please move forward with proper legislation that will allow for that to happen. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Mr. Gary Kirby.
If you'll be patient with me, I really am going to talk about Oklahoma water. It's going to take me a second to get there. I graduated from Auburn University with a master's degree in 1975. My first job was to help the state of Florida divide, helping the Department of Natural Resources divide Florida into 6 water management districts. And my job was to inventory the water availability in Florida. We profiled springs, reservoirs, aquifers. We made just basically an inventory of water was available. Before I left Florida, we had enough to find signs that we were at the point where we could tell this orange grower, yeah, you can have so many extra feet of water to grow your oranges, or no, you can't have that much water because the Appalachian River flow would not be sufficient to keep the estuary brackish instead of salt water. We have salt water intrusion. So it was a matter of water quality versus water quantity, which is interconnected. You can't separate the two. You can't do it. And I'm not going to insult your intelligence by trying to say that we had it down to the gallon. We didn't. But we threw the kitchen sink at trying to find out down to the gallon. The inflow, the aquifer under Georgia, that wasn't ours. The aquifer under Alabama, that wasn't ours. And we really tried. And we were down to the point where we could prevent things like, the billionaires with their lawns, which were water wells, one day would be watering their beautiful green lawns with fresh water, and because of salt water intrusion, because so much water being pulled out of the aquifer, their lawns were brown with salt water. We had some very unhappy people when that happened. So we were down to the point where we could say, yes, you can drill a well there 200 feet deep, but no, you cannot drill a well there 400 feet deep. And while I was still working for Florida, I came in on vacation. I'm from the Ardmore area, and I went to Oklahoma City, and I made a special trip to talk to the Water Resource Board. And I asked them if they, I'd like to do the same thing for my state of Oklahoma. We kind of got everything together down there. And I'm from here, and, I won't mention names, but I mean, the guy, the director of the Water Resource Board, the look I got from him was like a deer caught in headlights. I was talking over his head at his office. I guess I have more of a question than a comment today. Does Texas have such a comprehensive study that they know how much water they're going to need to expand Dallas-Fort Worth? Or are they just saying, with the John Wayne Swagger shooting from the hip, we're just going to build what we want to, and we're going to take your water. You got that water down here yet, boy? That's not the way to do it. I guess my question is, does Oklahoma have the type of study we did in Florida? Does Texas have the type of study we did in Florida? If they don't, neither Oklahoma or Texas knows where they have the water settlement. Thank you.
Next, we have former State Attorney General Larry Gary.
Thank you, Senator Crain, Senator Paddock. Nice to see you, Senator Ellis, Senator Field. Mr. Chairman, thank you. My 11-year-old granddaughter, Ava, recently heard some of my stories, and she said, "Papa, you've seen it all." And while that's obviously not true, you can look at my hair and see that I've seen more than most of you. I do know something about the water, by the way. I grew up on a dryland cotton farm in Jackson County. I met Gail, my wife of more than 48 years, 50 years ago. And one of our first dates was at a picnic at Lakeview Falls, on one of the sandy beaches on Lakeview Falls. I've lived most of my life in Oklahoma City. And Don Faulkner, my grass has been green, and my flowers have been growing for 40 years there. I've also seen water from another angle that really is why I wanted to make just a few remarks today. When I first went to the legislature 49 years ago, I was the author of a bill that rewrote the Oklahoma water law. I worked with the University of Oklahoma, with the Oklahoma Conservation Commission, with the Oklahoma Water Resources Board on redoing the Oklahoma Water Law. As Attorney General, I worked on the Red River Compact. I even worked on the Sardis Lake project. Over the last several years, I've worked with many people in this auditorium on matters relating to water. Almost 2 years ago, I was hired by Oklahomans for Responsible Water Policy to give them legal advice and counsel, which I've done with great enthusiasm. I also represent a citizens group called the Association for Protection of Oklahoma Water. And both of those organizations are formed and committed to calling attention to the importance of water to Southeast Oklahoma, requesting that anything going forward, whether it be legislation or litigation, be done carefully, thoughtfully, and lawfully. Don Faulkner said that if folks are trying to take water out of Southeast Oklahoma, they're going to have a fight on their hands. Well, I'm packing one of the pistols for Don Faulkner. I'm on their side. I think they're right, morally, socially, and for this conversation, legally. I do want to request one thing of you committee members and your colleagues. I do have a lot invested in research relating to the water issues in Oklahoma. I would be pleased and honored to work with your staff as you go through your hearings and your deliberations. I'm not sure that we can give them anything that's more helpful than they will dig up on their own, but maybe there's something in my gray hair that they don't have, because I have seen a lot. I've loved a lot. I love my state, and I want to be a part of making it bigger and stronger. Thank you for being here in my wife's home country, which frankly is by marriage, my home country. Thanks for listening to my friends. You know that they have passion, but they also have compassion. And that's not a bad combination for folks that really want to live in peace with the resources that God gave them and that they hope will be theirs forever. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call on Senator Jerry Ellis for any comments he may have and for an introduction.
Thank you, Senator Crain. Just quickly, I want to make some comments here about, I think, Representative Pruitt, if I understood it correctly, he was talking about that they were wanting to offer like 10 cents on the dollar. And he said that was a problem and a concern for him, and it's certainly a concern for me. You need to keep in mind that money is not going to come back down here where somebody else alluded to. It's going to come to the coffers in Oklahoma City. It's going to be divided up. When it gets here, you might get a red light from McCurtain County in exchange for your water. And that's what you're going to get. It's been talked about that we need money for aquifers, and we need money for stream flow, so we'll know how much ground and surface water that we have. And I couldn't agree more, Senator Crain. Texas recently on Proposition 2 that was put on the ballot November the 8th, they voted to allow up to $6 billion in bonding to address water infrastructure, educating the people on conservation, and building desalination plants and reservoirs. They have 26 more reservoirs proposed for 2012. I think this has come about because they lost in the federal courts September the 7th in the Board of Appeals in Denver. And the only resource that they have now is to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And so I think now they're seriously thinking about going back and taking care of the state of Texas, which is what they should have done all along. It's not the job of any state to take care of another state, and it's certainly not our job to take care of Texas. They have wells, build reservoirs, conservation plan, which they're not enforcing, they're watering the sidewalks in Dallas, and they can build desalinization plants, which they're now proposing. Now you look at Oklahoma City, who's interested in water. They got Garber Wellington aquifer there that they're setting on that they made no attempt to use. No attempt. Vast amount of water. Call Reservoir to the north has more water than Sardis Lake, and it is closer. Plus, it'd be coming downhill. They could have dredged out their reservoirs in Oklahoma City. I think Don Faulkner referred to 7 of them that they had. They made no attempt to dredge those out, to my knowledge, while the drought was going on. That's what we do to farm ponds with this dry weather. We clean them out so they'll hold water. And they need to get back to better management and quit giving their money to lawyers.
I'm not sure I disagree with that. I think you're right.
And as far as what are we going to get out of this, Atoka Lake was promised, the people around Atoka and McGee Creek were promised 50 years ago that you're going to get growth, you're going to get jobs. They got picnic tables. That's all they got was picnic tables in exchange for the water. We do not have trust, and the reason is, one of the things is, in April 2010, I guess it was, former Governor Henry and now this present governor, each one of them has made at least one appointment to the Water Resource Board. I brought it to your attention in April 2010. We have failed to get anybody from the southeast quadrant of the state on the Water Resource Board. So we have concerns down here. It's a valuable resource, and as far as jobs in the future, I'm going to introduce a guy to you that's going to tell you about 500 good jobs in this county that were placed in jeopardy this last summer. And at this time, I want to introduce to you Todd Crocher, Manager of International Papers. Thank you.
Well, my name is Todd Crocher, and I've only been here a short time. As a matter of fact, I've been here 3 years. You are the count those. I worked in paper mills all over this country, from New York State to Pensacola, Florida, Camden, Arkansas, several places in Louisiana, and now in Oklahoma. And I can tell you, water is one of those things you just sort of take for granted. I don't know how you guys are, but I can tell you, when I came to Oklahoma and I came to the Valiant Mills and we looked over the things we had in play, the last thing I thought about was, do we have enough water? That came to a real quick stop this summer. I think we were on the drought record. We get our water from the paper mill at Pine Creek Lake. Those of you who frequent that part of the world over there, you know that the Pine Creek Lake got to a very low level this year. To such a low level that I was worried and was making plans if we ran out of water, what we could do. Now, those of you may have, you guys have people that you know work at the paper mill besides you, now you know me, right? But there are good paying jobs at the paper mill. There's 500 good paying jobs there, and I can tell you that the impact of the community is significant. So I will just share with you this: as you begin to consider water and water use for Oklahoma or any other place, you need to understand that it's a commodity that's oftentimes misunderstood or overlooked. Don't allow that to happen, because businesses like our business depend on water, just like we depend on natural gas, or like we depend on wood, electricity, for those good people out there that work here today and make all that possible. Our contribution to the economy is not quite what you guys see at Broken Bow, but it's about $400 million a year, and it's something we can't afford to have go away or in any way after it. So, Senator, thank you for taking a moment to introduce me. I didn't exactly look forward to this, but I'm okay at the end of it.
Senator Crain, will you hear one more person being late? 5 minutes.
Well, that was actually why I was coming up here, was to say that is the extent of all the people who have signed up
tell you that brevity is an incredible blessing. But ma'am, please come on up. If you would, though, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Senator, and everyone who came. I appreciate being here. My name is Debbie Leo, and I live in Bush County. I live on the Kiamichi River. And I'm here today to represent the people that live on that river and south of Sodus Lake, and the Sodus Lake people who couldn't be here. Very many of us who could get away. I am one of those tree huggers, maybe a greenkeeper of it. I love to hug my trees, and I walk the river a lot, and I worry about the wildlife that is prevalent in the area. One of the things that some of you might not know is that Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma in particular, has one of the most diverse ecological systems in the country, in the whole country. And without the water that flows through it, all of the waters that flow through it, out of it, and keep it healthy, southeastern Oklahoma and the beauty that it is will go away. It will not last. For the loggers who need that water, for the future of the country, of the Oklahoma state, and the future of its people, we need to look at that and say we have to manage our water better. And I come from a state that has been through it, Colorado. I fought water there and came down to Oklahoma and said, my God, this is wonderful. Look at all the water. They manage their water resources so well. I was wrong. I found that the state of Oklahoma was 20 years behind Colorado has been sued many times. The water side of the Colorado River has been sold 10 times over. There isn't enough water. See, that said, I wrote a poem that some of you may have read in this little paper that we put out, and some of you may not have read. But I'm going to read it today because I think it says everything about what we've all been saying. It's called You Can't Drink the Money. Here is my story. It's sad, but it's true. The waters of the Kiamichi River watershed might be going dry for dollars. The waters of Sodus Lake will stop being blue. The Kiamichi River might be small and unknown in the overall theme of American rivers, but its wildness and beauty can send shivers through those who visit and teach who live here. The people who come here to fish and to boat will have to find solace in some other place. The critters that live there, well, they'll have to move on. But finding new waterways won't happen because if Oklahoma City or Northeast Texas have their way, the Kiamichi River's waters will go away. The wildlife, the flora, the frogs, and the otters will disappear if never here. You see, it's all about the money in America, everywhere you go. But here in Oklahoma, we're at a crossroads. Our tribal nation has been promised the water, from dancing rabbits, things to be honored. And the people of southeastern Oklahoma have yet to be asked how a future without water will be able to keep them on their lands and out of the hands of the greedy. What makes this area so incredible, you ask? Well, so many things of beauty and wildness. Look it up, explore it. I think you'll agree that the lives of so many in the hands of so few, well, how will the little people and critters all get through? If the corporate interests rule the day, our wildlife, our rivers, our towns will all go away. We can't drink the money, and the crops won't stop here. And so our way of life will soon disappear. How very sad. And I just want to say one thing. From what I've seen, when I've been up to both sides of the country, it seems like the corporations rule the day. I want to know who you guys represent. People of southeastern Oklahoma, or the corporations. Thank you very much.
then turn off on the right-hand side, back before the lake was there, back in 63, 64. And I knew that area before it was Hochatown. It was pretty much, Hochatown was under the lake. And when they first started to build the lake, they had to move all the cemetery over there to the road. And we thought that was sort of crazy at that time and everything. The government wanted that land, so they did it. But my stepfather worked on there in 66 and 67, and I went up there and seen it when it was dug out in a big hole. And I started learning to ski there when it started filling up in 71, 72. I learned to ski and I learned to fish. I grew up around in that area, and I never thought that this would ever happen, that they want to take our water away. You know, think about this. You know, the Lord blessed Tulsa and Oklahoma City area with oil, and it's something that we sometimes forget in all this politics and bureaucracy. We forget the main issue here. God has created all this. Jesus has given this to us. The right for water in this area, trees. We live with trees in this area when we're housing there just here. So God has blessed us with this in our area. And why we want to, try to give this away? Yes, we want to be good neighbors to Oklahoma City and Tulsa, but have you noticed on commercials and stuff on the Dallas stations, they're talking more about conserving the water. Why have they not started talking about this 5 or 10 years ago when we talk on Nation? I'm talking on behalf of myself as a person here that grew up here, not on behalf of Chocolate Nation as a representative like me and Thomas Wilson are, but we're talking about our hearts. And I just, I don't want them, to think that to come down here and steal our water. Just like we go up there, they make revenue off of oil and things like that. Water conservation is very important for those areas as they grow, as they continue to grow in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Dallas, and Fort Worth areas. But, for me, leave our water alone, please. That's our livelihood, and that's what we, I know Hochatown has grown a lot in the past 10 or 15 years because of that area. People thrive on that. And all these communities around here, Idabel, Broken Bow, thrive on tourism. You can go up there, try to go fishing and trout fishing up there, and you see all these Texas people, so that's good, bring revenue. But come up here and use our services and stuff. Don't take our water, please. Thank you. God bless.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Yes. And is there anyone else besides this gentleman? You, sir, you'll be next. Anyone after that second gentleman? Okay. This will be the last time that I ask. We will close it out after this gentleman speaks.
Oh, this gentleman is Thomas Wilson. I was elected as a tribal councilman, representing our Choctaw people in District 1. Like Connie says, I didn't come here to represent the Choctaw Nation, but I did come to represent somebody. And that somebody is probably a lot of your ancestors. A lot of the people that came over during the Trail of Tears, they're the ones that I come here to represent today. Because we were moved here against our will. We came here to sustain our lives, to build our families, just like your families have done, just like where you're at right now. We all started out someplace based on our ancestors, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. They raised us here. They taught us how to hunt and fish. You taught your grandchildren how to hunt and fish here in our waters in Southeast Oklahoma. Like I said, I don't come here to represent the Choctaw Nation as a whole. I'm the full-blooded Choctaw Indian. And my parents were brought here. My grandparents were here. And their parents were here. And those are the people that I'm representing. And those are the people that needed the water, sustained their lives, sustained us by the water that's here in Southeast Oklahoma. One time I went to Lawton, Oklahoma. I jumped around Kill Rock. I went there and I saw this, she was a Comanche lady at the Indian Health Service hospital there. She said, "Oh, what are you doing out of the woods?" "Oh, I just come to see what the people in the Dust Bowl are doing." Anyway, that's my opinion about who I'm representing. Our people, our ancestors, people that brought us here, the people that raised us. So, thank you.
talking loud. Anyway, my name is Claude Sumner, and I'm from Hughes County, Oklahoma, where I grew up on a creek. And the creek, when I visited years later, a farmer had cut all the trees along the creek, and as I wandered by, the creek's water had gone underground. I have since studied water law under Professor Rarick. I can remember the story that he told in class that said water law was written at that time because it would force the aquifers to be depleted, and the southeastern excess water would be forced to be moved back to the west. I can still remember that I was upset by that philosophy toward the law. If it's been rewritten, I have studied that. I have studied the treaties of the Choctaw Nation where our families were removed in 1830. I also studied by families allotments up in Hughes County and Cole County to the tune of about 2,400 acres, and they basically have been lost. I tried to study water, oil and gas. I just studied all the history of Oklahoma. I have a Caddo sister-in-law. I've been on the river in Texas trying to cut the trees out for a canoe trail to be called the Caddo Canoe Trail. When the Temple Inland clear cuts, going down the river of 37 miles taught me that clear cut causes erosion to fill the river. And you have to drag canoes or any water conveyance over lots of areas that have been eroded. I can remember studying the history of Choctaws when the railroads came in and the coal mines were sold, forced to be sold, and timberland was forced to be sold. So I have nothing against timber companies, but I did study that in the Temple Inland, which is a billionaire in Texas, he gathered that resource, sold it recently according to the internet. But what international paper and other companies that came into southeastern Oklahoma and need the water and provide jobs, my look at it is the tribe really never had a chance to, at this point, develop those same resources. So that at some point they were forced to be sold and chances never had been offered. When my ancestors came, they also moved up into Hughes County and developed allotment land. It is gone. We don't have a chance to develop those items. And water is one of the most precious assets of the world. I have studied it on the water claims in Idaho, the irrigation, the Colorado sale of water all the way down to the Gulf of California, the New Mexico, the Winter's Doctrine in Montana. All those areas show that the state of Oklahoma has eastern water law and western water law. And all of the aquifers that are being depleted, was intended to allow us a pressure time such as this, when the plan that we have in our hands says we're going to make a decision that appears to be a plan to work toward some water law. But when some of us from the Muskogee Creek Nation, where I work, and I'm not representing the nation, and I'm not representing the Choctaws, I'm representing myself because I have a last point to make. And that is that in those days, we went to Muskogee, we went to Tulsa, we went to other meetings, and when we gathered, if anyone knew that we were from the tribes in the second session, they were gone. We were sitting by ourselves. It happened enough that we realized we're not going to ever be heard, so we never attended. That answers one question. Second question is, I've attended a lot of things on behalf of Chief Ellis, who's the chief of the Muskogee Creek Nation. I'm his executive director. And we always get told by him, when the state wishes to discuss with the nation, I want to negotiate, I want to do the consultation that has been changed and accepted that word in the last meetings that I've attended. So as I come 167 miles today, especially to say that expectation is still there. And I've watched closely the Senate, the House, and the state governor, and I have seen no movement in that direction. But when the opportunity came to speak this morning, it was mainly to say we are still waiting in the Creek Nation. Thank you.